Well, Tom, 1 down and 19 to go as we count down the 20 greatest games of the last 50 years.
And, Bob, if you like surprise endings, you're in for a real treat because no postseason series, before or since, ever ended quite the way this one does.
So here we go. Number 19 on the countdown of MLB Network's 20 greatest games.
Pro Players Stadium in Miami coming at you with Game 4, a raucous crowd. The Marlins certainly don't want to get on a charter. They want to end it now. Broken bat, looped into left, a hit, 5-1 Florida. Underneath the glove of Gonzalez, and the game is tied. 2 runs home, 7-5 Florida. The Giants on the brink of elimination.
Here comes Snow. Here's the throw home. It is.
Well, Tom, number 20, when we opened our countdown, was a wild regular season game from 1979. Phillies 23, Cubs 22. That one's in there not because of its significance, but just because it was so memorable. Now we move to a postseason game with great significance. October 4th, 2003, in Miami, the Marlins hosting the Giants, Game 4 of the division series.
Let's look at the setting, Bob. It's not exactly Wrigley Field. Baseball, postseason baseball in South Florida. They were next to last in the league in attendance, but 65,000 people were on hand that day, and boy, were they loud.
Talk about the different routes these teams took to this series. The Marlins hadn't been over 500 since they won the World Series as a wild card for Jim Leland in 1997. They stumble out of the gate in 2003. Jeff Torborg is fired, and who replaces him? But 72-year-old Jack McKeon, Trader Jack.
Trader Jack, who was at home sitting on his porch in North Carolina sipping iced tea when the Marlins said, hey, we want you to manage this team. He came back, and Bob, I thought the best part about Jack McKeon was he enjoyed every minute of it. I mean, this is a guy who had 54 years in baseball, managed Harmon Killebrew and Miguel Cabrera, and he did it by the seat of his pants. I'll give you a story. Before Game 1 of the World Series, I sat with him, and really it was a groundskeeper's storage room. And I said, Jack, what does this mean to you? And he said, I've waited my whole life for this. And for a guy who really does manage by the seat of his pants, I said, what do you think of this sabermetric movement? People using stats to manage games. He said, sabermetrics? I didn't take that in school. Every button he pushed worked.
Had they invented algebra when Jack was in grade school?
I think he helped out with some theories.
So now on the other side, you got the Giants. They had come as close as you could come to winning the World Series without winning it in 2002 against the Angels. They had the 5-run lead in Game 6. Late in the game, it slipped away. They lose the series in 7. They led the National League West wire to wire in 03.
Led wire to wire, the 9th team to do so, and they led every game in this series at some point, and yet here in Game 4, they're facing elimination. And as you'll see with the lineups, this Giants team was built around one man, Barry Bonds.
We'll take a look at those lineups in just a second, but first let's talk about the pitching situation. The Marlins come into this game, Game 4, up 2-1, because they pulled out Game 3 in extra innings on an RBI hit, 2 RBI hit by Ivan Rodriguez that took them from a run down in the bottom of the 11th to winning the game. So now they're within a victory of wrapping it up. Jason Schmidt of the Giants had pitched a 3-hit shutout in Game 1. So a lot of Giant fans are saying the season's on the line. We got to start Schmidt, but what happened?
A lot of controversy before the game. Felipe Alou, the manager, said Schmidt came to him and said, I can't go. There was some issue about his elbow, and he said he's just not good enough to throw. Jason said, I am good enough to pitch, but I think the manager decided I can't take the risk. We still have to win 2 games. I'm going to hold him for game number 5. And so he gives the ball to a rookie, Jerome Williams.
Now, Williams had a record of 7-5 for the season. His opposing pitcher was also a rookie, but a different kind of rookie. The Rookie of the Year, Dontrelle Willis, a sensation at 14-6.
Right. But most of that sensation around Willis was the first half of the season. He started 9-1, 5-5 in the second half, started to lose some of that stuff. Big drawing card in South Florida, left-handed strikeout pitcher. But as you see in this game here, he's starting to run out of gas a little bit.
Before the city fathers get on me, I guess the game technically wasn't in Miami. The stadium is located closer to Fort Lauderdale, right?
That's correct.
All right. South Florida is always the safest way to go about it.
There you go.
Here were the lineups from that day in South Florida. And, Tom, the name that jumps out, of course, is Barry Bonds in the cleanup spot. No disrespect intended to anybody else, but he has almost no protection in this lineup. Jeff Kent was gone to the Dodgers by this time. Part of the reason that Bonds received 61 intentional walks that year. In subsequent years, he'd get even more, but they were pitching around him already.
Oh, absolutely. And the treatment continues in this series. Jack McKeon made it absolutely clear Barry Bonds is not beating us. They walked him 8 times, 6 times intentionally.
Here is Jack McKeon's lineup on that day for the Marlins as they look to get the clinching win and move on to the NLCS. And the name that's going to jump out here is Ivan Rodriguez, not just because he's a future Hall of Famer and a perennial all-star at that point in his career, but because in every way, with the bat and with the glove, he figures. He's
been the story of the whole series to this point. And go back 9 months to when he signed with the Marlins in January as a free agent, 1 year at $10 million. The baseball world was stunned that a market like Florida would step up with those kind of dollars for Pudge Rodriguez.
At least in the short term, they got their money's worth. As we move to the bottom of the second inning, the Giants hold a 1-0 lead. Florida at bat as we pick up the call from Dave O'Brien, Tony Gwynn, and Rick Sutcliffe.
Jack McKeon, one popular dude here in South Florida, but his team is down 1-0 as we go to the bottom of the second inning. Rake down the left field line. That's going to skip on that grass and up against the fence. Cabrera wants 2. Bonds up and throwing, and it's offline. He's got himself a walk-in double. Second 2-base hit off Williams for the Marlins today.
Just kind of shortened up. Got a ball that he could pull, hold it in the corner. Marlins have a guy in scoring position.
Encarnacion looking to bunt, drops it down to push that runner to third. That'll do it. Cabrera safely over to third base. Hammond's playing quite deep out there. It's a very expansive right field. Instead, he pulls it. Aurelia bobbles it. Throw to first offline, and everybody's safe. The run scores. And the Giants continue to shoot themselves in the foot. The run in to make it 1-1.
Conine hits this ball right on a button. Aurelia, if he comes up with it clean, he's got to play at the plate. Now he rushes to throw to first. They get nothing.
Tom, as Dave O'Brien said, the Giants continue to shoot themselves in the foot. For the series, they made 7 errors. The Marlins only 2.
Yes, I'm not sure if Aurelia had an out at home plate if he fields it cleanly, but certainly he has a play. But how about Miguel Cabrera? Don't forget, he was 0 for 9 in this series coming into the game. Mike Lowell, the regular third baseman, still had some problems with a hand he broke in August, and Jack McKeon wasn't sure he was good to go. Gives Cabrera the start, and he has a breakout game. In fact, after the game, Derek Lee, the Marlins first baseman, said Miguel Cabrera became a superstar today, 20 years old.
Would have been a good talent scout, Derek Lee. He was on the money about that. We'll come back with the Marlins and the Giants. It's number 19 on our countdown here on MLB Network. With Tom Verducci, Bob Costas back as we count down the 20 greatest games of the last 50 years. We're at number 19. It's Game 4 of the NLDS in 2003 between the Marlins and the Giants. And we'll pick it up in the bottom of the third. Marlins coming to the plate against Giants rookie right-hander Jerome Williams. The game tied at 1 apiece.
Well, this part of the lineup pretty deadly against the Giants yesterday. Their 2, 3, and 4 hitters went 7 for 15. Castillo takes off, and that's a gap shot. And he does hit the whole way out there. Up against the fence, Castillo can crawl home and into second with a double. Pudge Rodriguez, his 6th RBI of the series, and the Marlins lead it 2-1.
This ball is out over the plate. It's elevated. And when you're trying to go the other way, that's the ball that you want to hit. You want that ball that's up and elevated.
Nobody out here. Instead of base hit into left. Rodriguez into third. He's trying to score. Bobbled on the infield, and the run is in. 3-1. Derek Lee with an RBI hit to bring in Pudge Rodriguez, who's always in the middle of everything.
I don't know if there's a more aggressive or better third base coach in the game right now than Ozzie Guillen.
Well, Tom, one thing that Ozzie Guillen, coaching third base for the Marlins, knew was that as much as they wanted to avoid Bonds with a bat in his hand, When he had a glove on his right hand, they wanted to run on him.
Green light all the time. That's the scouting report on Bonds. At this point in his career, does not throw the ball very well. And as we saw there, didn't set himself, just kind of flipped the ball into Rich Aurilia with a poor throw off his glove. And actually, that also came into play later on in the game where Ozzie Guillen continues to run on Barry Bonds.
All right, so at this point, the Marlins are up 3-1. They would add to that lead as we go back to Dave O'Brien in the bottom of the fourth.
The D train has him going here in Florida. It is a 3-1 Marlin lead, and Dontrelle Willis will stand in. And he slices another single to left. And everything is going Dontrelle's way today, at least so far. Pierre not bunting here. Hits it sharply to base hit through the middle. Willis into second. 2 on and none out. Still early here in the fourth inning. But the Marlins have the bases jammed, and this could be a back-breaking kind of a hit if Cabrera gets another one. It almost hit him. He tried to sell it to the home plate ump Gary Cederstrom and said, look at the elbow.
Well, it didn't miss him by much.
He sure didn't.
Broken bat. Looped into left. A hit. Willison. Here comes Pierre. Bonds throwing home. He dives. He's safe. 2-run score. 5-1 Florida.
All of you rotisserie league and fantasy league guys that do that, you better try to figure out a way to get that guy on your team. He's going to be an everyday player, a productive player, Tony, for a long time.
All right, so first Derek Lee said it. Now Rick Sutcliffe is saying it. They're all foreshadowing what turns out to be true. Miguel Cabrera, superstar.
Absolutely. He tied a postseason record for rookies in this game with 4 hits. And a week or so later, Game 1 of the World Series at Yankee Stadium. I'm standing next to him at the batting cage. I was like, Yankee Stadium, World Series, what do you think, Miguel? He's 20 years old, don't forget. He said, this isn't about the past. This is about the future. I said, you sure you're 20 years old? Because it seemed like he already had 10 years in the big leagues.
Now, as the Marlins went up 5-1 here, another throw by Bonds to the plate. But in fairness, Juan Pierre still, and especially then, one of the fastest men in baseball. He scored.
Great base runner, no doubt. But, Bob, again, it's a green light with Bonds in the outfield. The throw is offline a little bit, but they're going to run every single chance they can get. Also, that's the Marlins' M.O. With the top of the order, with Juan Pierre and Luis Castillo, they put pressure on teams throughout that season.
So the Marlins are up 5-1, but one question, as you mentioned earlier, with Dontrelle Willis kind of faltering a little bit toward the end of what had begun as a spectacular rookie season, how many more innings can they get out of Willis is the question going forward.
Well, especially because he spent so much time on the bases. He had 3 hits in this game, including a triple. And there's some people who thought all the running he did on the bases, the standing around, took away from his stamina, because when he hit a wall in this game, he hit it hard.
Okay, so the Marlins are up 5-1. But you figured out it's not going to stay that way. Otherwise, how could it have made the list of the 20 greatest games? We're back with number 19 after this.
Swinging a high fly ball left center field. This one's deep. Pierre going back, looking to the wall. It's off the fence. Here comes Aurilia around to score, and this is a 1-run game. Swinging a drive by Dontrelle Willis on the run. Grissom, he can't get it. It's over his head. How about this? Up against the fence. He's heading into third. Willis trying for 3. Dives in with a triple. His 3rd hit of the day.
So a 2-out triple, but Willis is stranded there. They don't score. It's still 5-1, and even though it's a cliche, every time the pitcher has to exert himself a little bit, probably in this case it applies. He's running out of gas at this point.
And it's a hot day in Florida. And let's go back to the manager, Jack McKeon, being very old school. When he was hired, he said, I'm tired of these young pitchers having their arms babied. You guys are going to pitch deep into games. Also, don't forget, he used his top 4 starters out of the bullpen at some point during the entire postseason. So try to manage along with Jack here as the game develops.
All right, so it's still 5-1 Florida. Ray Durham will lead it off in the top of the 6th against Willis as the Giants try to rally. Again, Dave O'Brien.
Willis played it every day, played strikeout every day, starting about 10 years old with his buddies Ross and Reed. They lived across the street. A tennis ball, a wall, and a bat, you get yourself a game. A base hit through the hole. Ray Durham may be starting something here against Willis. We'll see if he's tired with all the road work he's done today, all that work on the bases. Alfonso, who's been red hot in the series, will hit after Barry Bonds. Hot shot. That one gets by Cabrera. May have caught some leather. I think he slowed it down. Conine picks it up along the line, and Durham goes headlong into third. On the corners, nobody out, and the Giants are rallying here. Hit hard, and a fair ball inside third down the line. That caroms to the warning track and up against the fence. Durham is in. Hammonds will be into third base, and it's a double for Rich Aurelia. That might be it for Dontrell Willis. Bonds is coming up.
Well, it might have been it for Dontrell Willis, but Jack McKeon had other ideas.
He did. Let's not forget, too, Willis, a left-hander, against Bonds, a left-hander. A matchup you may want to stick with him, but at this point, he has Brad Penny, another starting pitcher, warming up, a right-hander in the bullpen. The big decision here is, when do you go to the bullpen?
Edgardo Alfonso, right-handed batter with some pop, waiting behind Barry Bonds. Let's watch Willis now work to Bonds, and as Tom pointed out, through much of the series, they were either just intentionally passing him or working around him. And at this point in his career, Bonds is looking for maybe one or two good pitches to hack at in an entire game. Here he is with runners on second and third. Willis drops down on him and starts him with a strike.
Well, he's got the base open here, so basically you're defending against the home run, I believe. Jack McKeon wants to keep this ball in the ballpark and consider that a victory.
Willis getting wrapped around in this inning. Swinging a fly ball into left.
And here's the fly ball to the opposite field, deep enough to score a run. Kind of a moral victory at this point with Bonds when you hold him to the sac fly. So it's 5-3 with Alfonso coming up.
Here's where I thought McKeon has to take him out of the game. I thought he labored through this inning. Yes, running the bases is beginning to catch up with him. His pitches are not as crisp. And you have Alfonso, who is a pretty good clutch hitter up there, and the right-hander ready in the bullpen. Jack thinks differently.
But, you know, as you said, he managed old school by the seat of his pants. Tony La Russa would not have done this.
No, I mean, we know it's become a game of matchups. But remember, this is Jack McKeon's 54th year in the major leagues. When he came up in baseball and was raised as a manager, the starting pitcher stayed in the game.
And he stays in the game for at least one more hitter. It's Alfonso, and again, Dave O'Brien.
Swinging a high fly ball left center field. This one's deep. Pierre going back, looking to the wall. It's off the fence. Here comes Aurelia around to score, and this is a one-run game. Alfonso with another hit. Penny coming in, and the crowd rising up here at Pro Player Stadium for 21-year-old Dontrell Willis.
So this time, Jack McKeon's gut feeling didn't work out all that well. It's now a one-run game, and finally he will summon Penny to pitch to J.T. Snow.
Right. I think they're lucky that ball stayed in the ballpark, quite honestly. They still have a one-run lead, precarious, but now the Giants, down 5-1, suddenly have a lot of life.
All right, J.T. Snow is at the plate against Brad Penny.
Alfonso leading away from third, 2 down, and the 0-2. Toward the middle hard, underneath the glove of Gonzalez, and the game is tied. The Giants come all the way back with 4 runs in the inning, and we're starting all over in the 6th. A 5-5 game. Gonzalez could not make the stop.
JT shortened up on his swing. Just let you provide the power.
And an RBI single for him to tie the game. Snap throw, close, got him. Snow is cut down by Pudge Rodriguez. Snow will argue the call at first base. Side retired, and we're tied at 5.
So the Giants rally for 4. They chase Willis. They tie the game 5-5, middle of the 6th, but the rally short-circuited by Pudge Rodriguez with one of his specialties, picking a guy off first, in this case, J.T. Snow.
Yes, let's not forget, though, big clutch 2-out hit by J.T. Snow to tie this game. And there goes the win for Dontrell Willis. Had a 4-run lead, couldn't hold it. And really, that's where his career went, Bob. We talked about that 9-1 start. Never quite as good after that. In fact, after starting his career 9-1, became a .500 pitcher.
And now, as we move along after this break, what you just saw, as it turns out, will not be the last time in this game that J.T. Snow and Ivan Rodriguez figured together in a big way. You're watching number 19 on MLB Network's countdown of the 20 greatest games of the last 50 years.
Back-to-back walks here in the 6th, and the Marlins have 2 on and none out.
Let's see if Jack McKeon changes his mind. He said earlier today the one guy that he wouldn't bunt with is at home plate right now.
That hits him, and the bases are loaded that way. Bases loaded, nobody out for the Marlins.
So it looks, as Dave Verducci goes to the mound to talk with Matt Herges, it looks as if the Marlins are on the verge of breaking the 5-5 tie. They got the bases loaded with nobody out. But in this case, Herges gathers himself, he fans Miguel Cabrera, and then up comes Juan Encarnacion, and he hits into an inning-ending double play, so the 5-5 tie is preserved. Now we'll move ahead to the top of the 8th. It's still 5-5, 2 outs, nobody on for the Giants. And here's something interesting. It happened more than once during the latter part of his career. Up comes Bonds, 2 outs, nobody on. They walk him intentionally.
And in fact, Jack McKeon, the Marlins manager, had done this the day before in Game 3, 9th inning. Nobody on base, intentional walk.
Now, only a month before, the Balco case had broken, at least in public view. At this point, regardless of what he continues to maintain, Barry Bonds has to know that what was kind of an open secret is about to be blown wide open.
Right. It was September 3rd when the federal agents went into Balco, raided the place, talked to Victor Conti, and found out about the cream and the clear. Barry Bonds knows at this point what really was the worst-kept secret in baseball about steroid use is now out in the open.
Now, 2003 was the first year of survey testing. The players didn't know then that some of those names would ultimately get out. It was supposed to be anonymous. So players could have continued to use with impunity at that point.
Right. This is actually the last postseason where you could use any performance-enhancing substance without any risk of penalty. And let's not forget, too, even a guy like Matt Herges, who pitched out of that jam with the bases loaded, was also in the Mitchell report as a guy who had used steroids and human growth hormone.
Of course, without getting sidetracked too much here, people say, well, so many people in the Mitchell report, so many names that haven't actually been pinpointed, but we can assume. Why focus on Barry Bonds? Well, for the same reason that later you focus on Roger Clemens or Mark McGwire or Sammy Sosa. More historically significant.
Doing things in the game nobody had ever done before. That's why.
Including Barry Bonds himself, who was already a first-ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest players of all time, and with the help of the juice, went from an all-time great player to a superhuman player. Nobody, not Mays, not Aaron, not Mount, nobody was intentionally walked as often as this guy was, or pitched around and semi-intentionally walked as he was in the last 6, 7 years of his career.
Bob, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say he was, in this window, the most feared hitter in baseball history.
Yeah,
just look at
Ruth.
the way managers avoided him, including this Game 4.
Okay, Bonds didn't score after the intentional walk. It's still 5-5 as we go to the bottom of the 8th. 2 out, nobody on. The count is 3-1 to Pudge Rodriguez. Here we go.
Hard hit, deep short, through for a base hit. Certainly going on 3-1, and he collects his second hit of the day. That coming with 2 down, and the Marlins have the go-ahead run on at first. Derek Lee now hit by a pitch his last time up, walked the at-bat before that, and singled before that, so he's been on base 3 times.
You know, the young players on this team are impressive young guys. Cabrera, Pierre, Lee, Castillo, Gonzalez.
Hit him again. Lee gets drilled for the second time. That's going to push Pudge Rodriguez down into scoring position. This one dead even at 5-5. 2 down in the 8th inning, but trouble brewing for Felix Rodriguez and the San Francisco Giants. For the second time, Derek Lee has been hit by a pitch. 2 on here.
It hurts a lot right now, but Cabrera picks up the base hit. It'd be worth it.
Cabrera 3 for 4. His last at bat, he had a horrible at bat. He struck out with the bases loaded.
Make an adjustment, Dave, because all Herges did was throw fastballs on the outer half of the plate.
Line drive to right, base hit. Rodriguez rounding third. Cruz throwing home. It comes through. He's safe. He scores. Here comes another run. Lee trying to score. He's in, standing up. They forgot all about him. 2 runs home, 7-5 Florida. appearance in the National League Championship Series.
Everything's perfect. The adjustment you talked about, Rick, he made it inside out, the ball to right field. Cruz does everything right. He comes up, makes a perfect one hop, short hopped him, and Torrealba couldn't hold it.
And who is right in the middle of the play? Pudge Rodriguez.
And then great base running again. Lee scores.
And Cabrera goes all the way to third.
This ball kind of bounced up at the end, but it's still a good enough throw. If he holds on to it, he's out.
This may be the picture of this series right here.
He knocked it out with his left hand.
Fly to center, and Hammond's coming in on it. Out goes Aurelia, and he's got it.
So a clutch base hit by Cabrera, but again, unthinkable what the Giants did defensively. They just forget about the second runner.
Right, and remember, this all started 2 outs and nobody on base. Base hit by pitch. You know, the throw from Cruz was a little bit up the line, and Torrealba didn't have time to secure and tag. He was still trying to grasp that ball when Pudge really grazed him with that left arm, knocking the ball out. And you're absolutely right. Torrealba apparently forgot about Derek Lee also on the bases, and it was only after he took 3 or 4 leisurely steps, oh my goodness, I have to get the baseball, too late, second run scores.
So instead of 6-5, it's a 7-5 game as we go to the top of the 9th. But the Giants are not done yet.
Swinging a line drive down the right field line. This is a fair ball, and it'll roll down into the corner.
We're back with the conclusion. Game number 19 in our countdown after this.
Well, here we go to the 9th inning, and Ugueth Urbina in the game for the Marlins. And for Urbina today, his 3rd appearance, and has not allowed a run in 2 innings of work.
All right, Tom, Urbina had been an all-star earlier in his career with the Montreal Expos, still at this point an effective closer.
Right. Let's remember, the Marlins were built on young starting pitching. They really thought there was a hole at the back end of their bullpen. During the season, they went out and got Urbina because of his experience. But in the 9th inning, that experience really didn't show up very well.
Yeah, just a little shaky, at least to the first couple of batters. When we go back to the action, which we're about to do, we pick up the radio call from the San Francisco Giants' perspective, Dwayne Kuiper, who's working with Mike Krukow.
So Urbina will face Nefi Perez. Snow to follow, and then Torrealba. The pitch to Perez is low, 1 ball and 1 strike.
And there's the changeup.
Be very wise for Nefi Perez to play the role of a leadoff hitter. 1-1. Here's the pitch. Swinging a line drive down the right field line. This is a fair ball, and it'll roll down into the corner. And digging it out is Encarnacion, and if you're Nefi Perez, you stay at second, and he does.
Great at bat. He made a mistake. He dropped it down and in, which is Nefi Perez side of the plate, and he rakes it down the line, and now the tying run comes to the box. And the Giants are not going to give it up easily.
Well, here's JT Snow. Snow has a couple of hits. He's 2 for 3. 65,464 here this afternoon. So here's Snow. Urbina throws, and Snow hits a ground ball into right field, a base hit. Perez is going to be sent in, and Encarnacion will not throw, and it is now 7-6.
Okay, so Perez doubles, Snow singles, and here come the Giants.
It changes in a very quick heartbeat here. Urbina's in trouble. JT Snow with another clutch hit. Nobody out. Tying run at first. Go-ahead run at the plate. And he's looking awful shaky out there.
So the next hitter to face Urbina is Pedro Feliz, and he strikes him out. Then up comes Benito Santiago, and Santiago flies out. So the tying run is still at first base. Ray Durham is the last hope now for the Giants, and back to the call.
It's not done yet. Ray Durham climbs in. 2 down. The Florida Marlins on the verge of an upset. For the Giants, despite 100 regular season wins and a dominating 15.5 game first place finish to win the West, they have come to the brink of elimination in round one. It's bedlam here. And the count is 2-0.
See, Urbina knows he can't afford to make a mistake in right here. He's been pitching all these right-handed hitters away. And that's in the Durham. If you make a mistake to him, a good chance he could go deep.
That one behind him and may have hit him. And I think it did. It got him. He's been hit by the pitch. On 2-0, he gets hit in the back, and Durham takes first base. First and second, 2 down.
Jack McKeon's wondering, what in the world was that? How do you let a ball get away from you? Oh,
That's just hanging on to it too long right there.
you know what causes that?
Yeah, I know.
So now you've got the tying run in scoring position for San Francisco. That's JT Snow. If he scores, we are dead even. Again.
Nothing surprises me now.
Man, oh man. Some of the Marlins can hardly bear to watch.
The emotions for both sides.
I thought he was in pretty good shape till I saw that last pitch.
So now it's left up to Hammonds. Urbina to the plate. Hammonds hits one to left field. This is a flare. Conine coming in. He can't get it. Here comes Snow. Here's the throw home. It is in time, and Snow is out at the plate. And the Marlins win the division series on a terrific throw from Jeff Conine, and they are mobbing Pudge Rodriguez as Snow walks away, helmet in hand, and that's how this series ends. Unbelievable. Hammonds got the hit, but Conine made the throw. And in the end, who seemed to be in the middle of it when it counted, was Pudge Rodriguez. So the season ends on a play at the plate.
Unbelievable.
And Snow did everything he could to get through Pudge Rodriguez, but he got the one-hop throw where he could settle in and block the plate.
Pudge Rodriguez still clutching the ball after the collision at the plate. Little flare from Hammonds, and Conine was right on it. He couldn't make the catch, but you can't come up with a ball any more quickly than that.
That's a great play. Very underrated portion of this play when the ball is kind of a short hop, in between hop, off to his hip, and he's able to catch and get it into his throwing hand very quickly. The key is he gets rid of it quickly enough. And watch Aurelia, Rich Aurelia, the on-deck batter, is pointing to Snow to run towards the inside of the baseline because he knows the throw is on the outside of the baseline. But, you know, the throw from Conine, he got rid of it quickly enough so that Pudge had time to catch, secure it, and tag with 2 hands. That's the luxury that Torrealba didn't have on the earlier play at the plate on the throw from Cruz with the Giants.
And Snow's only chance was to try and run Pudge over. The collision took place, but Rodriguez held on, and then classic, Snow just lowers his head. Game over, series over.
Well, Bob, he also cost himself some time. When you look at the way he rounded third base, I think he went by way of Boca Raton. It wasn't exactly the cutting of the bag at third base the way that you would teach it. Every step counts in a situation like that, and that's why he wasn't able to run to the inside of the base. Even if he saw Aurelia, his momentum was carrying him far outside the baseline.
How about Urbina, who dives on top of Rodriguez in both happiness and relief, because that is one ugly save.
It was, and Pudge held on to that ball, not just for the tag, but for about the next hour or so. He was not giving up that ball.
So Pudge Rodriguez picks JT Snow off first base in the 6th inning to short-circuit a giant rally and keep the game tied. He makes the game-ending and series-ending tag at the plate. He was 2 for 4 in the game, and the day before, in the bottom of the 11th of Game 3, had a 2-run base hit that turned a 1-run deficit into a 1-run victory. I would say that he was the hero of the series.
No question about that. Any key point, any rally, defense or offense, he was in the middle of it. He went back out on the free agent market after this season. Got a lot more interest this year than he did the year before.
No postseason series, World Series or playoff series, has ever ended with the last out of the last game being made at the plate. There have been series that ended with plays at the plate. Sid Bream's safe on the Francisco Cabrera hit in 1992 when the Braves rallied in Game 7 against the Pirates. But none has ever ended before or since quite this way.
And that's what struck me, the suddenness of what just happened. It actually took a moment or two to take in all the information and say, oh, that's it. Because if he's safe, if the ball comes loose, we're still playing baseball. The Marlins obviously knew it was all over at that point.
Pudge Rodriguez was the man of the hour in South Florida, and afterwards he was interviewed on the field.
It was a very tough play. And I know, Kona is a good outfielder. He been throw the ball right to me, for the last 2 or 3 weeks since he came here. And in that situation, I just going to grab that ball in my glove, and I don't want to let that ball go out of my glove.
The thing that most people don't know is because I'd already been picked off and worried about Pudge, the worst thing I wanted was the pitch to go to the plate and Pudge to come up and throw him behind me down to second, So I had a real short, tentative lead.
Out into left field, breaking in, Conine can't get to it. Up with it, the runner's wait. Here's the throw to the plate. Pudge is waiting. He tags him, gets knocked over, holds on, and the Marlins win the game. What a play to end it.
Crazy because I saw the ball, Jeffrey Hammonds hit it, and I saw where Jeff Conine was at. And I was in center field, and I'm like saying, Conine, catch it, catch it, catch it. And as soon as it dropped, I'm like, man, where we go, we got to score again, because I thought he had no shot at the plate. So when he threw it, I thought it was kind of a courtesy throw at the plate. And then I saw it developing, and then when Pudge and JT Snow hit, so you just waiting to see if he held on to the ball, and he held the ball up, and it was one of the greatest plays that I've ever been involved in or seen.
There's 2 outs, and I'm thinking on the crack of the bat, I got to score. My lead, as I was saying, wasn't as big as it should. You can see I'm in the picture right here. Normally you're out of the picture. Ball's hit, I'm gone. And I'm almost probably to third base, and Conine makes a pretty good play and throw. And right at that point, I know I got to run Pudge over. I couldn't believe he held on to the ball.
Loop shot into left. Here comes Conine. He can't get it. He's throwing home. Snow trying to score. The tag. A collision. He is out at home. And the Florida Marlins have cut down the Giants. The upset of the 2003 postseason. And the surprise team of the regular season has become the giant killer of the playoffs.
Well, Dave O'Brien summing it up very well there, at least to that point. But there were more surprises to come, because on they go to the NLCS, where they fall behind the Cubs 3-1, and then enter Steve Bartman, at least eventually.
Down 3 runs with about 5 or 6 outs to go to the Cubs. Somehow they win that series. They go on to the World Series to play the Yankees, and they take out the Yankees. Think about that. They took out the Giants, the Cubs, and the Yankees, 3 of the most historic baseball franchises in the same postseason.
Josh Beckett, of course, the hero of the World Series with the wins against the Yanks.
Right, and he did it with a complete game in the 6th game of the World Series at Yankee Stadium on short rest. And remember the talk for days leading up to that start, at least 1 or 2 days, was to Jack McKeon. You're not going to pitch this guy on short rest, are you? 23-year-old right-hander deep into the postseason. He kind of held his cards close to the vest, but the day before he went to Josh and said, how you feeling? He said, I'm fine. He said, you've got the ball tomorrow. Not only did he give him the ball, he never took it out of his hands. We talked about Jack being an old-school manager. His starting pitcher was his closer that night at Yankee Stadium.
You know, the Marlins remain one of the strangest franchises in baseball history. They have only made the playoffs twice. They have never won the division. They were the wild card in '97 and again in '03. They are 6-0 in postseason series. They've never lost a postseason series. The Florida Marlins, who kind of pull a team together and then break it up immediately, did it twice. They have more world championships in that stretch than the Atlanta Braves.
Amazing. They don't do angst at all, do they?
I guess not.
There's no curses there. They don't bother getting in years where they don't have a chance. They get in 6-0 in the postseason series. Fans generally don't show up in the regular season, but as we saw here in the postseason, they show up in record numbers, filling the stadium, 65,000 people.
Maybe they will begin to show up more regularly when they get into their new ballpark. But again, turning the clock back to 2003, this series was remarkable enough. But remember what everybody was thinking as we moved ahead into the two LCSs. It looked like the Red Sox would prevail over the Yankees. They had the lead in Game 7. People were looking at Red Sox Cubs, and everybody was saying one of these hexes has to end. We're going to be at Fenway and Wrigley for the World Series. Not so fast.
And we were that close.
Oh, yeah.
Think about it. Both teams had their ace on the mound with a chance to win the series. For the Cubs, it was Mark Pryor, and for the Red Sox, it was Pedro Martinez. If they could not have drawn up better scenarios, Bob, and obviously they didn't hold on in both cases.
Now, from the Giants' perspective, this was the beginning of the end of their run at a world championship that team never quite achieved. They came close in 2002 and lost in 7 to the Angels. But basically, their run as a contender was over at this point.
Absolutely. And when we talk about angst, the Giants knew that way too well. In fact, that's why their 2010 championship, I think, meant so much to the city of San Francisco and the Giants. This series, they had a lead in every single game, lost the series. The year before, they had a chance to win Game 6 and then lost Game 7 in the World Series. You can take it back even to Willie McCovey's line drive to Bobby Richardson in 1962. Angst, they had plenty of it, but finally rewarded in 2010.
When you look at this game, the one we just saw, all the twists and turns, all the clutch hits, all the big plays made defensively, and some that were not made defensively. A lot to talk about. This game really had texture to it, which is part of what goes into the selection. It isn't just a dramatic and exciting ending, although this game had it, and almost every game on the countdown will have it. The game generally has to mean something, and everything that kind of came before, not only in that game, but in the series and in the season, factors into the decision.
Agreed. And one other layer that I look at is the quality of the players in the game. And I look at this game and I see Pudge Rodriguez, the catcher, one of the best, obviously, of his generation. I see a young Miguel Cabrera breaking into the game and an older Barry Bonds working his way out of the game. Superstar players with a lot on the line.
Of course, in the case of the Marlins, their fans savoring it on the one hand and then shaking their head on the other because they were never able to hold those teams together. I mean, Jim Leyland's team wins in '97, fire sale. This team wins in 2003. Almost before they can pick up the confetti from the parade, let's start breaking it up.
And it's a shame because a lot of the talk after this postseason was how long could the Marlins extend this window, because you think about their young pitching, Josh Beckett, Carl Pavano, Brad Penny, Dontrell Willis. It just didn't last. It looked good on paper, but you're right, they did not hold it together.
Okay, Tom, thanks. So we have clicked off the first two of our 20-game countdown, the 20 greatest games since 1961. That's 50 baseball seasons. Number 20 came from 1979, a wild, almost unbelievable game between the Phillies and Cubs at Wrigley Field that Philadelphia won 23-22. And you've just seen number 19, Game 4 from October of 2003, as the Marlins eliminate the Giants and win the NLDS and move on to the LCS against the Cubs. Join us next time for number 18 on MLB Network's countdown of the 20 greatest games of the last 50 years.
Here comes Snow. Here's the throw home. It is in time, and Snow is out at the plate.
I saw Pudge this year with the Nationals when he came through town. I went up and talked to him. He came up to me, and he said, I still have a little pain right in here, right in his, like his sternum. Still hurts, because when we saw each other, we smiled. And I said, I couldn't believe he still held on that ball.
And the Marlins win the division series, and they are mobbing Pudge Rodriguez as Snow walks away, helmet in hand, and that's how this series ends.